All right, why don't we get started here? So again, my name is John Clay, VP of Threat Intelligence here at Trend Micro. And welcome to our webinar about the Palo Alto GlobalProtect vulnerability. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. We will take a Q&A at the end of this session. So you should have a Q&A button in the Zoom agent. So if you have a question that comes up, feel free to put it in there, and we will try to get to that at the end. Joining me today is my co-host, Andre Fernandez, who's a technical advisor specialist at Trend Micro. Andre, how are you today?
How good? Good morning, guys. Or good morning and good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, and so we're going to break this up into kind of two areas. The first, I'm going to cover the vulnerability itself, kind of what's going on with it and where it is, how it works, all that kind of stuff. And then Andre's going to come back and talk a little bit more on what you can do as an organization to prepare against this and potentially detect this as we go forward. So why don't we get started here? Get my mouse going. So a company called Velocity actually found this in the wild. So this was a zero-day exploit that was found in the wild by them in their customer environment. And obviously that's the challenge for anybody whenever there's a zero-day exploit, which means there is no patch for it. We've seen a couple of these over the last several months and years. And it's always a challenge for an organization because, the adversaries are constantly looking at how the best way to get into an organization initial access, and certainly utilizing an unpatched vulnerability allows them to get access to most environments. We saw recently with MoveIT that the CLOP group used that to get into quite a few organizations before it was discovered. And so this is a zero-day exploitation of an unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability in the GlobalProtect product by Palo Alto Networks. And if you see here. Yeah, so just for people's understanding, this is what GlobalProtect is. It's a secure remote access product by Palo Alto Networks. And it is usually you have to have it connected to the internet, which is what causes a problem for adversaries able to be initially access an organization. It was given a CVE number, CVE-2024-3400. Let's look at the timeline. So just so everybody understands kind of what occurred here. The adversary was named UTA0218 by Velocity. So that's the name they gave the adversary. They do claim that this is a very sophisticated adversary, potentially nation state. That hasn't been confirmed though. But if you think about on April 10th of 2024, they found the exploit in one of their customer environments. And so obviously that started to kick off the situation. They contacted Palo Alto to alert them of the exploit being run. They found a second exploit in another network that they had in their customer networks. So they obviously confirmed that this was being exploited in the wild at that point. At that point, they contact Palo Alto. They submit all the information to Palo Alto, and then Palo Alto was able to take that and start working on a patch for their products. Now, as part of their investigation, though, Velocity actually was able to backtrack, and they found that this was being exploited back in March 26th. So obviously it was the adversary had already been in networks for quite a while, a couple of weeks now, utilizing this. So that's the challenge with zero-day exploits, is that how do you know how long they have been in a network? Because you don't know when they actually were able to obtain that zero-day exploit. What's interesting here is we're not sure how the adversary was able to get the exploit? Did they purchase it from somebody in the underground markets, or did they develop it themselves? We don't know that information, but certainly that is an option for any adversaries out there. I know a lot of initial access brokers utilize these and try to find these. They either have on staff people that can find them themselves, or they purchase them in the underground market. I know just recently there was a Apple iOS bug that was for sale in the underground market for about $1 million. So certainly these are being offered quite often in the underground markets. We actually published a report not a couple of years back about the end-day exploit market. End-day is already patched vulnerabilities, and we found a lot of information. You can check that research report out on our website. But again, going back, so the challenge here now is finding out whether you have this adversary in your network or not, and they utilize that exploit for a number of weeks already. Now, Palo Alto has issued fixes, patches already, so they've been doing it since April 14th, and as when I last checked their website, it was they had through yesterday they had patches for most of their products, but that's the timeline. When you look at the actual vulnerability itself, so this was a zero-day exploitation of the GlobalProtect firewall devices. It allowed unauthenticated remote code execution to take place, which basically meant somebody remotely could execute code on the device itself. So it didn't need to have internal access to it. It was able to do this remotely. The initial exploitation was used to create a reverse shell and download other tools. So they installed a backdoor, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but they were able to install a backdoor that then allowed them to download other tools into the organization and do some lateral movement. So they exfiltrated some config data and moved laterally in there. The initial persistence setup involved configuring a cron job. So this was a cron job, basically allowed it to run regularly, constantly at a specified time. And it was able to retrieve a payload from an attacker-controlled URL. So what was happening, they had established a command and control presence, which allowed that internal system to be able to access an external URL, which hosted other tools that the adversary wanted to use in their attack against their victims. It was interesting here. The attacker used this method to deploy and execute specific commands and download a reverse proxy tool such as Ghost, which is Ghost Simple Tunnel. So again, using the internal network to access an external location, which allowed them to download more tools there. In one case, a service account configured for use by the Palo Alto firewall was used. A member of the domain admins group was used to attack and to pivot internally across there. So one of the things you always got to be aware of is these adversaries are going to look for accounts that they can compromise and get access to. And a lot of times they're administrative accounts, domain account, admin accounts, because that gives them kind of the keys to be able to do other things inside the organization, whether it's lateral movement, accessing systems that admin account has access to. In a lot of cases, they try to find accounts that have access to the security controls, which then they turn off and are able to utilize those as well. It looks like the initial objectives were aimed at grabbing the domain backup keys and targeting Active Directory credentials within these accounts, which would allow them to do other things inside the account, whether it's espionage or trying to do some financially driven type stuff like stealing data and selling that data. This is a screenshot from the Palo Alto website. So you'll notice a couple of things. First and foremost, this rated at 10 in the severity level. So NIST did put out this and gave some information there, but they rated it as a 10, which is the highest level it can be. Another aspect to this that people should understand when they're dealing with vulnerabilities is there were a number of proof of concept, POC code, that were published publicly. Whenever that happens with any vulnerability, it increases the risk of that vulnerability being used by adversaries, because anybody can take that proof of concept code and use it to develop their own exploit and create and utilize that exploit anywhere in these environments. So that makes it a bigger challenge. So as you're building your vulnerability management program, there's a couple of key things you need to look at whenever you see a new vulnerability being disclosed. First and foremost, is it actively being exploited in the wild, like this one? Is there a proof of concept code published publicly, like this one here had? Those two pieces of looking at a vulnerability's criticality is key, because that can tell you whether that is something that you need to take advantage of or fix very quickly or not. So that was an issue. You see a couple other things in here. The attack requirements were none. Could you be automatable? Yes. Product availability was high. Product integrity was high. Product confidentiality was high. So there was a lot of things obviously associated with this vulnerability that caused it to become a bigger issue for a lot of the customers for Palo Alto because of all of these things that were happening. Now, on the bottom here, you'll see what Palo Alto operating systems were affected. And you can see here it was 10.2.5, 11.0.2, and 11.1 were the affected operating systems. So one of the things obviously you want to do is look at what operating system version you have to see if you are affected or not. And then on the right here, you see the solutions that Palo Alto has published already or are going to be publishing. And you'll notice that the times range from 4.14 through 4.19. So depending on which operating system you have, you probably have a patch already available. The challenge obviously would be is how quickly can you get that patch rolled out to your devices, and Andre is going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit here. Now, there was second stage malware that was deployed by the adversaries. So the initial access was done by the exploit, but once they were inside the organization, they dropped some second stage malware. And you can see here, this comes from the Velocity website. So I've got the URL there if you want to go look at some more information about it. They've got this information on their website, but you can see it. There was some web requests. They did some read the error log, retrieve commands, decode and execute a command. Command output comes back, saves to a command output to a file. It waits 15 seconds and restores the original CSS file. So they actually did some restoration of the original files that they were infecting to obfuscate their tracks. So this file was certainly out there and utilized. There was another file that they dropped as well that actually in their analysis, they had 6 versions of that file that were dropped inside a number of companies, and each version did something slightly different. So again, this is one of the challenges we have with these types of attacks, is that the adversaries are constantly modifying and changing things as they go along. And they certainly look to wipe out their tracks so that you don't see what they have done or where they have been inside your organization. And that makes it a little more difficult to deal with. So that's just a quick overview. If you want more details about this, what I would recommend you do is either go to the Velocity website blog or the Palo Alto one. Unit 42 also of Palo Alto, their threat research group, has a number of different some information about this as well on their site. I'm going to turn it over to Andre now, who's going to go into some of the ways that you can help identify this if it's in your organization, as well as maybe mitigate some of the threat against it. So Andre, why don't you take it over now, and we'll get back, come back later.
Perfect. So thank you very much, John, for the introduction, making my life much easier from now on. So hello, guys. From everything that John was mentioning here, I think we can describe this attack, or we can classify the attack phase or with two biggest things. The first one, the exploitation part. So attackers that they just got access to exploits and they were trying to take the control of the Palo Alto firewalls. And then the next stage, like they were trying to do lateral movement. They were trying to play inside of that affected environment. And this the information you can see here is also part of the velocity report, the network traffic analysis. So as you can see here, the attackers, they were executing activities or playing, executing techniques or tools that are commonly used on any environment. I mean, we are not talking about a zero-day malware or a zero-day ransomware, like in terms of techniques or how they were trying to do lateral movement and compromise additional devices, like a direct to IP HTTP requests using wget. So the GlobalProtect device initiating connections to the internet and downloading additional content like that Python files that John was mentioning before. Or starting RDP and SMB connections, searching for maybe or probably additional targets inside of the network. And even transferring files, like as soon as they find or if they discover some potential device inside of the network, transferring Google Chromes and also Mozilla Microsoft Edge installation files to those devices. Probably some additional zero-day malwares, but again, using from good names or Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge to try to avoid detection or to try to avoid any NDR solution detection. Or even this last call here, like this was a common behavior that was found on most of the situations they really compromised the customers or some companies. Connections to this roadtimeapi.org. This is a non-website, not a malicious website, but this looked like a way to make sure they had connectivity to the internet and they were able to still manage and to control the device. But the biggest question is, okay, so just looking at from the exploit point of view and also to the network behavior point of view, what we can do or how we can secure our infrastructure, how we can secure our environment. I think we have two approaches here to start. The first one, how can we secure, how we can prevent protect our environment if attackers are trying to exploit vulnerabilities. So one of the approaches that I saw here as part of the attendees list, I can see some trend customers that are using Tipping Point. Tipping Point is our next-gen IPS. So this solution combines IPS capabilities with NDR. So as you can see here on this right side of the screen, on April 16, we released the first virtual patching option, the first update to the virtual patching to help you guys protecting your GlobalProtect device. So if you have your IPS device, place it in front of the GlobalProtect, and if some attacker is trying to exploit that vulnerability, you'll be fine. The solution will be able to detect and stop that request. And this is important because even if, okay, with Palo Alto releasing the patch a few days ago, we know that it's not that easy to have all the devices up to date, and also because that will require some restart, reboot, and things that we know that are part of the patch management process. So again, not an easy task, but if you have Tipping Point in front of your firewalls, you should be fine. At least looking from the external attacks, or think about if maybe attackers are trying to connect from inside of the network, then we have some other tools to help you guys detecting and stopping. But let's change the point of view now. All of that network activity behavior, again, if you look to each of that individual items or actions, they are not malicious, right? Like we can expect, like if we monitor, if you look at any network, we will be seeing, we can watch that kind of behavior happening all the time. And then is the moment we have the different approach. Still, the same tipping point appliance could be useful, could help us detecting that kind of abnormal behavior. If you are monitoring the internal segments of your network using this device, that yellow tag, the NDR module, will be taking care of this, will be helping us to detect and to highlight the issues or the potential attack. Or if you prefer a complete out-of-band deployment, we also have a solution called Deep Discovery Inspector. We just need to connect some span ports to this device, and the solution will start detecting and highlighting any potential attack for you. And how do we play this, or how can we really enable the solution to do that? I think most of the people in this call, they are familiar with the Trend Vision One. Trend Vision One is our XDR platform. So not just Trend solutions, but also other solutions, inclusive Palo Alto, they could be connected to this platform. And something that we can do here, as you can see, custom filters and custom detection models. I mean, we can literally teach to the platform, to this platform, how to monitor for this specific behavior. So you will find these 4 items, network activity, Palo Alto, searching for RDP or SMB requests, or then searching for a suspicious SMB file transfer, or a connection to that runtime API.org, or even just a wget request. But again, each of these behaviors is separate, or if you're just looking to these isolated activities, they're not something bad. As you can see here, we have the risk level showing us a low risk. But as soon as we combine these 4 actions into a custom detection model, like what you can see here, then we can have Vision One enabled to help you monitoring for this abnormal behavior. So if your Palo Alto device are starting playing this or executing these kind of activities, we could have Vision One detecting. And something that's nice, we are not just looking to the past 5 seconds, 1 minute or so. As you can see here in the second column, we can go back on time up to 7 days. So even if the attackers are just exploiting and dropping the initial payload to the device, 3 hours after that, executing the wget or the connection to the runtime API, and they are taking up to 7 days to go through all of this attack phase, our solution can still detect and highlight this issue. But then you may ask, okay, we have the solution highlighting the problem, but what about the response? Because I don't know if this alert will trigger 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I don't know if I will have people to keep watching and monitoring for this attack. So this is the moment that we can use or connect all of this threat intelligence we can generate with the secured playbooks. As you can see here, the first tag, in terms of action, every time we have like this possible detection, this possible attack targeting the Palo Alto appliance, you will find the ability, again, using the secured playbooks, submit the file objects for sandbox, or even collecting the URLs and then having that URLs be analyzed by our sandbox module. So if we have a confirmation like that specific file, the Google Chrome or the Microsoft Edge that was shared over the network, or even any URL that we may notice as part of this behavior, if we find that files are malicious or a zero-day malware, we could have all of the Trend solutions responding or having a kind of coordinated response, securing the environment. And if you guys are, if you are a Palo Alto customer, and if you have connected your Palo Alto device with Trend Vision One, we could even enable your Palo Alto device to protect itself. Or it's a kind of having the Trend platform enhancing the Palo Alto solution, enable the platform to protect itself against any of the IOCs, preventing connections coming from one specific IP address or to a specific URL, and the same with the hash files. So again, a different approach to help you guys securing or trying to have a kind of automation tools to help you guys to be more protected or better protected. And again, this is just one of the use cases, but like what John was mentioning, we are seeing more and more this behavior happening. Like every day, new zero-day vulnerabilities affecting firewalls, affecting any kind of solution or all the vendors in the market. So these kind of tools that I just showed you here, having the network sensor to give you the ability to monitor and detect suspicious behaviors, and also playing with custom detection model and automation tools, this is the key to really enable your environment to be better protected, and to have like the automation tools doing the job, not rely on people or processes to do the job for you. And the second part of this secured playbook, that's why I'm highlighting this part here, we could even connect all of these findings with your business proxies. So if you have ServiceNow, if you have other solutions, we could even have a Trend Vision one opening a cybersecurity ticket, announcing or indicating something bad, something suspicious is going on. So then having your SOC team take an action, investigating and responding against this attack or possible attack. But what else we can do here? Let me just move to the next slide. Again, since I saw that we have some customers that are using Tipping Point here, I know that some of them, they have also Palo Altos in place inside of their infrastructure. Tipping Point also has some filters other than that vulnerability exploitation, the filter to detect the exploit itself. We have some other filters like the ones that you can see here, ability to detect that wget retrieval, or connections to HTTP, just one IP address instead of a DNS name, or SMB file transmission, SMB protocol attempt, the same with RDP. So if you guys are worried about if the attackers are trying a different exploit, but trying to follow or to run the same behavior inside of the network, the same actions inside of the network, we could use some of these filters here in a combination, just detecting and stopping attacks, or detecting and just highlighting the issue. So then having the SOC guys, the SOC analysts, investigating and responding. So this is one of the options that we also have as part of the Tipping Point platform. But other than that, other than playing with these network security solutions, the IPS and the NDR, another possibility, since GlobalProtect is positioned as a zero trust platform, some of the tools that Palo Alto is offering to the market to let remote people, remote employees, to keep accessing the business applications, right? So one of the possibilities would be the Trend Zero Trust platform, the private access control, as you can see here. And this red tag on the left side of the screen, the applications are hidden from discovery, removing the need of expose applications directly to the internet. The architecture of our solution is different compared to what Palo Alto is offering to the market. So we don't really need to expose, for example, this private access connector. That's the equivalent of the GlobalProtect appliance or the GlobalProtect service. So since we don't have this exposure to the internet, if we just go back to John's presentation, unauthenticated remote code execution. This unauthenticated part is what makes this vulnerability so critical, because any person in the internet could just try, I will use the Trend domain or like a vpn.trendmicro.com. They will find access, they can access the applications, they will have access to the vulnerability itself, like any person could access this vulnerability. Looking at our platform, the way that we are positioning the architecture of our platform, this would never happen, because the way that we are making the interaction between the users and the broker or the private access connector use a different approach that does not require exposing any TCP ports to the internet. And this is something that really adds value and will be reducing your attack surface or the risk of having any of your services being exploited. So with that said, I have one more slide here, since we are 30 minutes now. We will open for some questions. Jesse?
Yeah, Andre, thank you very much for that overview. So again, as audience, you can see, we give you a few options to take, but obviously one of the big pieces now is if you are a Palo Alto GlobalProtect customer, you do want to apply those patches as quickly as possible. But if you have the need to delay that, as Andre said, you're a Trend Micro customer, you have some options among that. So we do this for a lot of the vulnerabilities that happen out there in the world. In fact, our zero-day initiative sources a lot of zero-day bugs. We did 20% of the Microsoft bugs last year alone. But we put in virtual patches, and last year on average it was around 96 days ahead of the vendor patch. So I don't see any questions in the Q&A at this point. If you do have some questions, certainly ask them. You could do it in the Q&A or in the chat. Does anyone have an indicator on who developed this 0 day? So, Maka, we're not sure who created it. Obviously, the adversary that was identified as using it. The other question is whether it was created by the group itself or whether it was purchased in the underground. If it was purchased in the underground, there is potential to utilize it. The POCs that are publicly out there today basically give you the blueprint for creating a version of the exploit. So that's difficult. And on the slide here, you see a QR code. If you wanted to talk to us, get some new next steps, certainly feel free to click on that. But let's see if there's any other questions that have come in. I know we're at the end of the half hour, we decided.
If you allow me, like this morning I was checking on GitHub if there was any proof of concept. Like you say that there are many. Some of them, like literally, here's the exploit.python. You can just download it and then go through. You can exploit and take the control of the appliance. So again, this is a very critical vulnerability, and any person would just, okay, github.com, CVE-2024-3400, and they will have access to the exploit. They can easily replicate and do whatever they want, right?
Yeah. Yep. So everybody, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We will send out the slides to everybody, so be aware, as well as a link to the recorded version of this. So if you have colleagues or friends that you think would benefit from listening to this on demand, you will have that as well. So everybody, thank you very much for attending. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. We know you're all busy, but everybody, please, Andre, thank you for joining me today. You had some excellent points to share.
Yeah, thank you, guys. So again, like what you said, we are more than happy to help you if you are curious about, if you have some or part or none of our technologies. Again, the power of this platform, Trend Vision One, is what really will be enabling us or you guys to be better protected. This was just one example. Like we know that you all have many challenges to secure or to respond against attacks. And something that we are the market in general, we are still missing is how to automate or how to make your lives easier, how to make the security solutions work for you and not the opposite. And this is what you can have by counting with Trend, by counting with our technologies. Again, me, John, Brittany, Jesse, all the people here, we are more than happy to connect with you and help with this vulnerability or with any other challenge you may have, for sure.
Great. Thanks, Andre. Thanks, everybody, for attending. And we'll be back again at some point with another one of these, depending on what incident happens next, which is likely to be. So everybody, have a great day and stay safe out there and enjoy your weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.